Hi everybody, welcome back. Thanks for adding some suggestions to the Jamboard. The Jamboard will stay live, so as I start to just wrap us up, you can keep adding to the Jamboard, and the slide, you can move the slides at the top just to flick between them and just see what people have put on there. The more we can add, the more ideas we've got, and there's some good ones on there already. I'm interested if you can add a couple of ideas to sense of self. I'm interested if you have opportunity to discuss current issues and how you might do that with your students. But I'm going to just present to you sort of very quickly, and I like I say, I'm going to give all these things to you anyway, but I'm just going to present to you 25 ways very quickly, like I said, and you can always contact me for more information. But I'm going to present to you 25 ways in which we might be able to do, it's like 5 ways for each of the different things. So and I want you just to think about. I want you to see if any of these stand out for you in terms of what you might be able to take away. So, in terms of relationships, then I think things like study groups, peer-to-peer mentoring, initial assessment, vision boards, and shared thinking can all help to build a sense of relationship or be relationship building. So having half-termly or termly study groups where you put them in 3s or 4s to actually help each other to study. So you might use independent study time where they have to work in the study groups and you have to structure that. If you just put students into groups and tell them to go away, that doesn't work. But you might be able to structure that and give them a real focus to that study group time. And peer-to-peer mentoring, having a buddy system, having an official peer-to-peer student coaching or mentoring program is often something as well that can help really contribute to building relationships. And I'm just going to pose the question, which is, how well do you know your learners? And that's beyond the content. How well do you know your students, what makes them tick, what they're interested in? And it might be that they don't know what they're interested in yet, but how well do you know them? How well can you use that information to tailor the lessons? Vision boards is a really great creative way to get them thinking about what their industry is about, where they want to be, what they might work towards, help them, and then sharing that with each other helps to build that sense of getting to know each other. And then shared thinking is them working in small groups to come up with what's their opinions, what are their different opinions, what are the similarities in their opinions, and what are the differences. Community then, and I'm going at this at speed. Community collective vision is all about how do you get the group to decide what their collective vision is for the module. What do they want the classroom to be like, to feel like? How do they want to interact? How do they want to engage in the study? What is that collective vision for what that module will look like for that group? Employer co-delivery, as I said, building that sense of community beyond the classroom and seeing employers as part of the learning community. I've put podcasting or vlogging. Having a podcast or a vlog can create. So it might be something to explore with your students. Do they want a little internal podcast? Who would they interview? Who's going to be on the podcast? What sorts of things would help them to get to know the industry better? So it's like project-based podcasting or vlogging to help build that sense of community with the industry. Acts of service, and I've given that a general term, helps to build a sense of community. So how can they serve the local community? How does what they're learning, how they can apply that in the community? How could they apply it in the college to help make the college a better place or the community a better place? And then exploration challenge. What I mean by that is how can you set some sort of exploration or challenge that means they have to work really closely together. Sport and public services do this really well, usually at the start of a year, academic year, where they go on like a mission, they go on a residential, or they go on some sort of expedition away from college, and they do activities where it pushes the students outside the comfort zone. Metacognition then, metacognitive strategy, is that word's not just now. How do you build that into lessons? How do you get reflective plenaries? How do you have reflective review points in your modules? Will help to develop a sense of metacognition. As I said before, having reflection or review weeks. So, often review weeks can consist of catch up, and actually we need to repurpose that. So how can we have reflection or review weeks that really focuses on student progress, student reflection, student development? How can we reward students being on target and being on task and being engaged, rather than letting the good students go and getting the students that are behind in for catch up? Strengths-based analysis. Strengths is getting them to identify what they're good at, what they're interested in, and keep developing a sense of strengths. We're very good in education at building a sense of what we're not good at. So we're always focusing on what we need to be better at, what don't you know enough about, and how can we flip that and use the strengths-based approach. The PERMA model is all about building a sense of meaning and purpose. If you're interested in positive psychology, it's research by Martin Seligman. So the PERMA model is all about how can we engage students in a reflective space where they are, and the PERMA model helps you to do that. I won't go into it in too much detail here. Transparent curriculum. So this is about how can we get them to see where they're going and where they're heading to. What are the different routes into industry? What are the different career options? What are the different ways that they're going to learn, and how will that help them get ready for industry? Some colleges are doing some really nice visual career roadmaps, which are really getting students to engage in where they're going, where they're heading, and why all of their learning matters. What's the why? And I will send you some more stuff about the why. If you've not seen the Simon Sinek things about a book about Start With the Why, it's a really great thing to consider. The why needs to be bigger than just the qualification. The why we're doing something, the why we're learning something, the why that something's included in the curriculum needs to be bigger than just it's on the assessment, it's on the qualification, because otherwise we switch them off. Knowledge, skills and behaviour frameworks are really good to use. So some colleges are developing like a framework that have the top 10 knowledge, skills and behaviours for that particular industry. Students are then able to score themselves against those knowledge, skills and behaviours at various points in the year. Student design groups or co-design groups. Have you got student innovation groups? Have you got student curriculum groups that can input and discuss what they want to learn, how they want to learn it, how are they influencing the curriculum and the curriculum design and delivery? And then 5 is similar to the roadmaps, which is visual learning journeys. When they're here, what are they going to be learning and how are they going to be learning it, and what does that look like over time? Can often demystify the program and demystify where they're at and where they're going. I've just seen a question in the chat about Jamboard. Yes, Jamboard is free. You just need a Google account. And yeah, it's anonymous. It can be anonymous. So people are now using that as a place for students to give feedback on things or input into the way that link to this student co-design. What do they want more of? Who do they want to see? Who do they want to hear from in industry? And then last one, sense of self, reflective practice, getting to know themselves really well is good practice. How can you get them to do more of that? Critical thinking, how can you use critical questions, critical reflection questions to develop students' thinking skills, developing their opinions. What's their opinion? It's really interesting. We ask them, what do you think? Or how little we ask students, what do you think about something? Because they're so used to having a right or a wrong answer. Building positive mindset. Now that is a whole other day's training, if you like. How you build a positive mindset, how to get students to focus on what they're doing well, how do we get them to focus on how well they've learned something, what's helping them to learn, what their skills are, what they want to contribute to the industry, all of that sort of thing. And then thinking models. What I mean by that is there are structures out there that help you to think. One of them in particular is the thinking environment, where you could do thinking pairs, thinking rounds, but ultimately it's a structure that you put in place that means everybody has to participate, everybody has to speak out loud, and it's okay and it's safe to just speak, and there not be a right or a wrong answer. You're just speaking as you think. It really helps to build a sense of confidence, really helps to build a sense of value that you're contributing to the discussion, because as you know, it's really easy for students not to contribute to a discussion. So again, you can start that in pairs, in fours, and then build it up to sort of whole thinking rounds with classes. So that's the thinking environment if you're interested in that. What I am going to finish on, I know we're pushed for time, is leadership in the classroom. And I want you to we're going to then just summarise in the chat some of the things that you already do, or some of the things you think you might be able to use in going forward. So as I mentioned, this is the Simon Sinek book, The Start with the Why. And what he talks about in that book, and if you Google him, he's done a TED Talk that's been viewed millions of times. It's a really great TED Talk just to get you started. And if you put explicit about the why, and it's linked to a bigger purpose, you'll get more engagement. So he talks about it from a business point of view. He talks about how some companies focus on the what, some companies focus on the how, but actually companies that focus on the why and how this contributes to a better world, or how this makes people's lives easier, or a bigger picture, businesses are more successful. And what we see with students is, if this why related to their learning is bigger than themselves, is bigger than getting a qualification, it's bigger than just coming to college and doing assignments and assessments and then they go off again. If it's bigger than that, then they are more engaged. So we really need to think on a team level, a curriculum team level. And that's a lot of work. That's a lot of the work that I'm doing at the minute, is working across curriculum departments and curriculum teams and with teacher and learning teams about what is that big picture around learning. How do we create a culture of excellence around learning? And a lot of it is to do with the focusing on the why and the vision. A couple of other things just to point you in directions of leadership lessons that are useful for teaching and learning. The work by Brené Brown is amazing, and because she's all about people, it's why I really love it. But she talks about building trust. And when we think about students engaging with us, we have to build their trust. We have to get to know them. These are the things that matter, and these are the things that build trust. So what you say matters. Whatever comes out of your mouth really matters. And it can be just the way that we phrase something can either switch a student off or can really get them to be interested. So we need to connect with them. We have to build a relationship, and we have to have meaningful, open conversations. That includes wanting the best for people and wanting the best for the students. Sometimes we're not explicit with that. Accepting everybody as they are. Everybody brings themselves, and pay attention, that we're supportive, and there's a with culture. So if we develop a with culture with those students, they will feel a sense of agency and involvement in their learning. And the Dare to Lead book is a good one if you're into reading and looking at things. I always read leadership books or anything to do with performance or building culture, because I'm fascinated by culture. It's the work that I do with colleges. And I think about, what does that mean for my classroom as well as for teams across a college? And that's how I think about how we, leadership in a classroom. And positive cultures, then, this is just a summary of lots of books that I've read, actually. There's quite a few. When I send the slides and the links, I will also put a list of books in case anyone's interested in some of the books that I've read. It's really important that we help people to find meaning in their work. So we need to help students to find meaning and a sense of meaning for them. And this is a biggie. Praise and recognition is massive in terms of improving engagement and motivation. And what I want to just remind you of is, in education, we're very good at looking at what students are not good at, what they need to be better at, and the deficit. We're very good at looking at a deficit model or using a deficit model. Praise and recognition, if it's specific and it's regular, you can really, really engage people. And it applies for students. So how can you praise the efforts and the energies and the behaviours that you do want to see? It can really change students' mindsets. Space to reflect and collaboratively focus on meaning. So getting the students to reflect often, reflect together on their progress, what they're interested in, what they're motivated to do. Vivid direction. Teams that perform really well have a very vivid direction of where they're going. So if we can convey a really vivid direction for our students, where do we want them to get to, how we're going to support them, what that ambitious vision is for our students, we have to keep reiterating that, and eventually they will see that we want the best for them. And then linked to this praise and recognition, how do we celebrate the wins? The more that we celebrate the successes, the more that we celebrate what they're doing well, the more that we celebrate what they're learning well, and the skills and the knowledge and the behaviours that we're seeing that are the positive things that we want, the better. And then the last one for me is the Pygmalion effect, which is what I've always been fascinated with, which is high expectations lead to improved performance. So if you expect your students to achieve well, they will work to that. But you have to be able to communicate that really well to students. So we might have that expectation, we might have a high expectation of them, but we may not communicate it particularly well. And students will pick up on, the research shows that even if you don't say that you don't expect someone to achieve, they still pick up on that. So if you expect students to not do well, or you put a glass ceiling on their achievement, or you think this student's struggling, it's not about saying that they're not struggling if they are struggling, but it's about having that and communicating that high expectation. How do you make sure that the students know that the bar is really high, but you're going to help them all to get there? That's different from setting out that some of them will do well or some of them will achieve really well. And it's just really interesting and important to think about the language that we use. How do we convey to students that you want this for them, you want the best for them, and that you're going to help them get there? Being very explicit about that really helps them to buy in to the belief in themselves and your belief in them. So really interesting. If you're interested in positive psychology, it's absolutely fascinating. So just to finish, because we're tight on time, we'll just spend a few minutes reflecting in the chat. Is there anything from the 25 ways that you might be able to embed relationships, community, metacognition, transparent curriculum, and sense of self that stood out to you, that you're interested in learning more about? Put that in the chat. Is there anything that jumped out at you from there? And then second point I want you to reflect on and put in the chat is there anything from the leadership of the classroom that you think has sort of raised your interest, that you think would be useful for you to explore a little bit more about? And then also just in the chat, is there anything that you'd love me to send you a bit more information about? Because I'll take all of that in and get you some links or pointers or books to think about as well. So first question is there anything from the 5 pillars that you found that stood out to you that you think, yes, I can go away and do that? Thank you, Lindsay. And then is there anything from the leadership of the classroom, positive psychology research, that you think, actually, that's quite interesting, I'm going to have a think about how I can do that? Yeah, building positive mindset. You can match that actually, Neela, with the metacognition. The metacognition helps you to build that positive mindset by focusing on strengths, by focusing on what they're interested in, by focusing on what they're surprised, how they've surprised themselves, that sort of thing. It's how you ask the question. So yeah, great. it's really interesting actually to think about, how do we highlight progress? How do we get students to see how far they've come? Because sometimes we focus on where they still need to improve. So yeah, Josh, also that industry experts. One of the little buzzwords that I've been promoting is masterclasses. How can you have a series of masterclasses from industry experts that maybe acts as a reward? So we don't think about reward enough. Reward really motivates. So how can you have a reward system? How do you have reward strategies such as masterclasses? So if they're on target, or they're working above target, or once a term you recognise all the students that have made a particular effort that term, and they can access the masterclasses, that sort of thing. Let's think differently. Let's think creatively about how we can motivate students. But masterclasses gets people interested. Even just think about the language and the words that we use. How can we get them students engaged in masterclasses? I also really love the idea of having industry coaches, industry mentors. How can we get employers to, it's asking them to give up a bit of time, but again, as a reward, if you are recognised for your efforts, on a termly basis, you get access to an hour with an industry expert for a bit of coaching, potentially, something like that. I just love everyone else just to throw something in the chat. What else has stood out to you today? What have you what's interesting to you? How might you, or what sorts of things might you take away and explore a little bit more about? Yeah, great. Contributes to something bigger. It's really motivating, actually. If you look at some of the research and the reading about purpose, a sense of purpose, and I know that's quite a big concept, but that PERMA model, if you're interested, Josh, the PERMA model, the M is about a sense of meaning. So all of us as humans, they find that if we have a sense of meaning, we have a better sense of well-being. And I definitely do. You might relate to that in education, because I've got a sense of being able to contribute to other people's learning. It really motivates me. Yeah, great, Neela. Why and how you've applied it in group tutorials. I'm really interested in how you've applied. That'll be a really good one to share with your other colleges and other colleagues. Getting students to think about their why is really powerful. Yeah, I bet. And I can imagine when you started to do that work, possibly they'd say, well, I don't know. But actually, we can really help build that sense of purpose and sense of why. And this is where the exposure to industry, the exposure to all the different parts of industry, we can then ask them to think about how they contribute, or what they're interested in, and how they might contribute to industry in the future. It's really powerful. Great. Anything else from anybody? Just really interested in what people find useful. I'm always interested in what people think, oh, that's useful, or that's interesting, mainly because it sort of helps me to think about what's useful to people and where they're at with their students. Yeah, Lindsay, great. Trying to get them to be aware of what's going on in their own community. Yeah. Again, it's broadening the lens, isn't it? It's widening the circle. I heard something the other day, and I can't remember what it was on. I listen to quite a lot of podcasts, but how do we widen the lens? Because we can often, and it comes with, growth and development and time, doesn't it? But how can we widen the lens from sense of self? Even though I've talked about sense of self and developing a sense of self, how can we then take it out again and look at that sense of community, sense of something beyond our own lens, getting them to look at what's going on around them. Often on our own doorsteps, we're missing some of that as well. But I encourage you to think creatively and innovatively about how you do these things, and I'm always, I'm on Twitter and I'm on LinkedIn if you want to find me. I'm always up for discussions and chats and questions, and this, because this is the type of work that I'm doing with colleges across the country actually at the minute. Yeah, great. I love that, Josh. You need to change language. Yeah, it needs to be done to pass. It's so easy to say that because ultimately it's true. But like, how do we just make it bigger than that? How do we yeah, no, Josh, I love that. Being honest, it's really important that we're honest and we're reflective. And like I say, it's really easy. That is ultimately, that's how we're driven, isn't it, as education, to achieve, to get students to pass qualifications. But we can take it bigger than that. We can motivate students a bit more. Great. So yeah, any other questions? If you think of more questions, you can give Mark an email as well, and he's put that in the chat. And I'll talk to Mark as well about how we just, any feedback or any questions that come in or any work that we do in the future, I'll talk to Mark about that too. So, and I'll get everything to you as soon as I can. But yeah, thanks, Sophia. Industry experts, yeah, great. For unruly students.
Hi, Stefanie.
Hi, Mark.
Just reduce my volume down a bit. Hopefully everything's gone okay. I'm aware that there were a few glitchy problems at the beginning, but thank you very, very much for persevering with it. I suppose you're very much ready to have a bit of a lie down now. And
back to pilot inspection, it is actually. But it's all fun, isn't it?
Well, I caught the end of the session there because I've been off in one of the others as well with Tony's. It's good to hear some different accents in our conference this year as well.
Yeah.
Trying to break the Kentish thing, but definitely go and have that lie down. And but again, thank you very, very much. Looking from the engagement in the chat and so on, although it's a relatively smallish group, I think it's been really interactive. And again, thank you hugely. As you mentioned, we'll be able to pick up questions and stuff post-event if people want to email them to the email address that I've put there. If they know my other email address, they're more than welcome to use that, and I'll liaise with Stefanie and try and get questions and so on answered post-event. In case people don't know and haven't seen it before, when we've had these events in the past, we have a special web page for it on the KFE site. So there's a drop down at the end that says more, and in there's TLA resources, and we usually put post-event sets of slides or other links like that on that page. So look out for those. They usually take 2 days to a week for us to put them there, but that'll be another place where you can find, for some of the other sessions as well, some of the content from today. So Stefanie, I'll let you go.
Yes, thank you. Thanks so much for having me. And yeah, people have put in the chat. I'm really grateful for their engagement. But yeah, I mean, lots of Joy FE opportunities for people to join in with conversations afterwards as well. But yeah, thanks so much for having me, and I'll get everything to you: slides, links, books, etc. But thank you, Mark.
It's brilliant. Thank you very much, and we'll see you soon. And everyone else that we're speaking to here, just give you a bit of a briefing on the plan now. If you are participating in the prevent session with Alamgir Shariar, you can stay exactly here. He will be coming into this space hopefully in about the next 5 to 10 minutes. He obviously always delivers a very hard-hitting session, so please do stay here if you are booked in for that session. You're welcome to stay here. We'll revert to table mode whilst we wait for Alamgir to arrive, and then we will resume with him shortly at around about 12:15 if we're able to run to time. So again, thank you for Stefanie and cheerio. And thank you to you all for participating in Stefanie's session. I'll see some of you shortly for Alamgir's session. If I just ask, if you move, if you decide to go from this area and you repopulate yourself back in to the central hall, try and stay on the first floor. Don't go to the second floor because Tony's session is still happening there. You'll be able to hear what's going on, but they've got very specific workshop activities going on. So thank you to you all, and see you all hopefully at one of our future conferences. I will be doing some closing remarks at one if you want to drop back for those. But until then, hopefully I'll see some of you, as I said, for Allen Gear, and see you soon. Thank you.